Fanfic Corner, presented by Jennifer. Traitor, Part 1. It was a glorious summer day. The kind of day that was just hot enough to make cool weather inviting, but not so hot that you couldn't enjoy a game of volleyball or a walk in the park. The kind of day where not a single wisp of cloud was visible anywhere in the sky. The kind of day where even the most delicate of shut-ins might emerge blinking into the sunlight to enjoy the beautiful weather. The kind of day greeted an all-weather schedule with delight and anticipation by ponies all over Equestria. In Canterlot, the fashionable unicorn elite strolled the streets hoof in hoof, eating gelato from little stands that sprung up in weather like this, or took air sips out of the countryside to sightsee and picnic. The beaches within 100 miles of Manhattan were packed with city Pokemon getting out to enjoy the day, and the amusement parks were seeing record crowds. In Ponyville, of course, things were less crowded. Some ponies had headed out to the coast or gone camping in Whitetail Woods, since the following night was scheduled to be just as lovely as the day. Many of the rest were down at the lake, in little groups all along the winding shores, splashing and playing in the water or grilling food on the shore. That included a certain group of 6 Pokemon, 1 dragon, and 1 recently acquired changeling friend, visiting from the Crystal Empire. Thorax looked around in continual wonder at the playing Pokemon. The hive had beautiful summer days, of course. Located in the dry Badlands as it was, it had quite a lot of them. But changelings did not take vacations. A beautiful summer day was just like any other day. The work of the hive continued on. That ponies should stop working and play simply because the weather was nice, simply because they wanted to, was astonishing. "Clothes are almost ready, and we want to carrot dog," called out Spike from where he stood on the stool in front of the grill. He was wearing a kiss-the-cook apron and had a spatula in one hand. "What's a carrot dog?" asked Thorax, peering at the grill and the pile of various foodstuffs beside it. "These guys." Spike picked up a whole carrot, green top and all. "They grow up pretty nicely, and then you put them in a bun and slather them with ketchup. Though if it were just me, I'd rather not waste the coal. Carrots are okay, but..." He slipped a hand into the grill and picked a glowing chunk out, popping it into his mouth with a quick, almost surreptitious motion. "Spike!" called out Twilight from the shore a few yards away. "If you keep eating all the coals, you'll never actually get them ready to cook." "Sorry," said Spike. Twilight shook her head wearily as a chorus of giggles erupted from the other mares. "You eat fire?" said Thorax, staring at the grill. "I'm a dragon," Spike grinned. "But nah, I eat rocks. The fire just doesn't bother me. It kind of adds a nice spicy hit. Coal is actually pretty bland, though good anorectics have a subtler flavor. But you don't grill with Ethrex." "I have no idea what you're talking about," said Thorax, feeling very confused. Don't worry about it. I'll put a carrot dog on for you. You'll probably like those. Changelings eat carrots, right?" "We mostly eat mushrooms," said Thorax with a little shrug. "But I like a lot of pony food." "Well, you'll probably like carrots. You should go swimming, though. I've got the grill, but you're here to have a vacation and get to know my other friends. You can't just sit here and watch me cook all day." "Okay," said Thorax. He turned and looked over at the lake, and looked out over the lake. Far out on the water, a faint sound of music floated from a boat, where he could just make out a white unicorn holding a boom box, while a bunch of other ponies lounged on the deck, and a gray earth pony mare was being towed behind on a set of skis. He knew skis from his time in the Crystal Empire, but he hadn't known you could use them on water. Nearer to the shore, though, Pinkie Pie and Twilight were setting up a water volleyball net, and Rainbow Dash and Applejack were splashing each other playfully. Thorax was still getting to know these ponies, but he already knew Rainbow Dash and Applejack well enough to be completely unsurprised when the splashing started to escalate. One little splash was answered with a bigger splash, until Applejack sent a wave of water that completely drenched Rainbow Dash, and she was finally goaded into using her wings to send an even bigger back. Now that's done it, you cheater, said Applejack with a grin. Then she spun around and kicked out repeatedly with both hind hooves, propelling the variable tsunami of water at Rainbow Dash. But she didn't stop there. She kept bucking until Rainbow Dash had to duck under the surface of the lake to get away from the repeated soaking. "Ha! Take that!" said Rainbow Dash, and sent a column of water toppling at her opponent, who simply ducked, submerging herself completely and letting the water spout collapse past her and over the unsuspecting Twilight Sparkle, who had just finished helping Pinkie Pie erect the volleyball net. "Hey!" The soaked alicorn looked up at Rainbow Dash, who doubled over laughing, completely unrepentant. Twilight rolled her eyes, then suddenly grinned. "Be careful what you started, Rainbow Dash." "You can't splash me from down there," shot back the Pegasus without pausing to think. Twilight's grin grew broader. "Want to bet?" Her horn began to glow, and behind Rainbow Dash, a massive chunk of lake water glowed to a matching magnet and began to rise up in the air. Rainbow Dash was still laughing, not seeing the huge ball of water gradually looming up behind her until it cast a shadow over her, and she spun around in midair. Her eyes went wide, and she started to say, "Hey, that's cheating," but then the ball dumped itself over her in a torrent, washing her down into the lake and incidentally soaking every other ponies present as well. It even caused enough of a splash that Thorax, still standing on the shore, got a little wet. Just past him, Spike was still dry, but he called out, "If the grill gets wet, nobody gets a carrot dog." "Sorry," said Twilight, but she was still grinning. Rainbow Dash surfaced with a sputter next to her. "Cheater," she said, but she was grinning too. "You started the cheating, Sugar Cube," chimed in Applejack, who was soaked but also grinning. There are no formalized rules in water fights," said Twilight with a little self-satisfied smirk. Only because I don't want to so it was not cheating and I win. And only because I don't want to get lunch wet," said Rainbow Dash. "Who wants to play volleyball?" called out Pinkie Pie from the water. "You should go play," Spike said from behind Thorax, who was simply standing on the shore watching. "Go on." Thorax hesitated for a moment longer. Diving into the swirling, happy and playing ponies was intimidating, but even the dainty Fluttershy was in the lake, taking up the position on Pinkie Pie's team. Rarely, admittedly, was sticking strictly to the shore, sunning herself on a deck chair. But that just meant that there was an odd number of players, and a moment later Pinkie Pie bounded over chivalrously Thorax to join the team. He somehow ended up on a team with Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy, playing against Pinkie, Twilight, and Applejack. The rules were explained and seemed fairly straightforward, though he still found it odd to spend time on something so apparently pointless. Changelings didn't really play as such. Not once they had finished molting, at least. Yet fun really was, fun. He soon was completely caught up in the game. His skill at imitating proved useful as well. Once he had seen a pony employ a move, he could simply repeat the same move, generally to good effect. Though that did lead him astray when, after seeing Pinkie Pie headbutt the ball, he attempted to do the same and instead skewered it on his horn. Thorax stood there, the brightly colored ball deflating on top of his head, and put his ears back in dismay. He had ruined the game. Would the ponies all be mad at him? The other five stared, and he started to shrink away from them, bracing for the inevitable anger. Then he realized there were giggling all around him as the ponies broke into laughter. Thorax froze for a moment, shocked that they weren't mad, then offered a hesitant smile. Sorry? It's fine. I have balls stashed all over Ponyville in case of emergencies, said Pinkie Pie as she raced to a bush on the shore and pulled a second ball out of it, bouncing it up and down on her hoof expertly. A moment later, the deflated ball had been put aside and the new one was flying back and forth as the game continued. There was a great deal of laughter and splashing, but before long the game was once again interrupted, this time by Rainbow Dash, who rose up out of the water and did a backflip in the air to give the ball an immensely powerful kick. It sent it not only out of the lake, but rocketing across the beach into the woods behind. Thorax stared after it in astonishment. Oops, said Rainbow Dash. Did anybody see where it went? I was finishing my spin. Nope, said Rainbow Dash, and there were shaking heads around the volleyball net. Oh, pony feathers, said Pinkie Pie. The nearest emergency ball isn't anywhere near here. I saw where it went, offered Thorax. I can go look for it. Yay! Pinkie Pie bounced in the water, splashing enthusiastically. Thorax couldn't help but smile as he waded towards the shore. He climbed out of the water and nearly tripped as a thundering herd of foals ran along the shoreline, shouting and squirting water guns at each other in some sort of game of tag. As he paused, Sweetie Belle, who he hadn't really known but recognized vaguely as Rarity's sister, was hit by a jet of water from one of the other foals and fell dramatically right at his hoofs. I'm hit, I'm dying, eek, ack, oop. She put a hoof over her heart and withered around the ground. Dying is horrible, all is lost, alas. With one last dramatic spasm, she went still, though one eye was cracked open to see how the other foals had received her performance. Thorax stared at this in confusion. Pony foals practiced deception like changelings? But why? Then he jerked his eyes back towards the woods. The ball. Right. He trotted around the dead filly and into the woods beyond. Looking around, he soon spotted the bright bit of color that was the ball. It was wedged in a bush behind a cluster of rocks. As Thorax trotted closer to one of the rocks, a sudden growl closer. One of the rocks suddenly glowed with green fire, twisting right up and becoming a sleek black form of a changeling, a very familiar changeling. Phoenix! Thorax stared at his brother in shock. What are you doing here? I could ask the same of you, Phoenix said with narrowed eyes. You were sent to scout the Crystal Empire months ago, and now I find you here, playing with ponies, undisguised. Is that not the mission our queen sent you on? Terror gripped Thorax. He had been found out. He'd be dragged back to the hive and punished for sure. The queen's punishments were always horrible, and she'd no doubt come up with something new and extra awful just for him. There have been rumors that you were going openly among ponies, and that you were consorting with Shining Armor and Cadence, the queen's mortal enemies, but I didn't want to believe them. But now I see you here, frolicking like some sort of deranged nymph with Twilight Sparkle herself, the pony responsible for ruining our queen's plans and destroying the prosperity and triumph of our hive deserves. Explain yourself, brother. Explain why you've betrayed your queen, your hive, your family, and the explanation had better be good. Phoenix was practically spitting the words out now, his fangs bared in an angry snarl. It's not like that at all. Thorax scrambled. What could he say? What could possibly explain being around not just ponies, but the very worst enemies of the hive? Then suddenly it came to him. I'm deceiving them. I'm pretending to be their friend, so I can get close enough to get revenge for the hive's defeat. Then I explained to him, that is not what you were ordered to do. I know, but I got caught out. They discovered me, and I couldn't hide. I had to lie fast, just like I'm doing now, he thought to himself. I told them I wasn't like the other changelings, that I abandoned the hive, and that I wanted to be friends. They absolutely ate it up. Ponies value friendship so much that the thought of it is overwhelmed their senses. They've been teaching me all kinds of information and spending all kinds of time around me. I knew that if I stayed with them long enough, I'd eventually find the perfect moment to strike and kill them all. Phoenix stood silently, looking at Thorax for a long time. Thorax felt like his heart was going to be out of his chest. Would Phoenix buy it? Well, I admire your zeal in trying to turn a bad situation into a victory for the hive. Your lie was clever, but you should have returned to the hive as soon as you had the chance, not stick around and try to avenge our queen. Yes, I suppose so. I was so angry at these ponies, I couldn't stand to leave when I knew I might have a chance to get them all. Phoenix nodded. Very understandable, and quite commendable. You should succeed. He suddenly smiled. In fact, I'd like to see it. My own brother bringing all the hive's enemies low at once. But that perfect moment had better come soon, Thorax. I need to report back to the hive within the week. I suspect Queen Chrysalis will have her own ideas about revenge on ponies. Oh, yes, well, you should consider simply coming back with me now and leave these revenge fantasies of yours alone. Perhaps once you're home, our queen can find a way to use your supposed friendship with the ponies to the hive's advantage. Thorax tried to flinch at the suggestion. Return to the hive? Return to his life of servitude and punishment? Leave his friends behind? No. Their trust right now is such a good chance. If I just vanish, they'll be suspicious. I don't think we'll get an opportunity like this again. So I'll just go back before they notice I'm gone. Okay? Very well. But soon. You may believe it's acceptable to disregard our queen's orders, but I'm not so cavalier about the matter. I will be reporting back in a week's time. He stepped back, melting into the forest shadows and leaving Thorax standing alone. Thorax swallowed hard. That had been absolutely terrifying, and now he was in hot water for certain. What was he going to do? He picked up the ball and headed back to the lakeshore, his hooves dragging as if he were going to a funeral. He probably was. Not right now, but once the week was up, Chrysalis would be coming for him. He was sure of it. She was certain to ferret out the truth, and then she'd kill him. There he is! Pinkie Pie's cheerful cry rang over the water, and the other ponies all turned to look. They immediately noticed something was wrong, and the moment later he was surrounded by a crowd of worried friends. Thorax, what is it? Asked Twilight. We have a problem.